in several different ways. That might be with rocks, it might be with spears, tipped with cuari, for example.
But they'd kill him.
Oh, certainly. That was not somebody they were going to let survive. If at all possible, they wanted to take him out.
I wonder if it ever backfired on the shaman, or it didn't work at that particular time, and then the giant got him or something.
Well, I think it probably more than once did. Although the record that I saw, and from what I understood from Francesco, the giants had a very high respect, a very high regard for the shaman with the crystal skull. And the images that I saw, the giant never won.
Well, that's an interesting thought right there. Do we know where any of these creatures came from specifically?
The legend, and in the historical record of the Mayan, and actually those that predated the Mayan, we're looking at the Olmecs and some cultures before that, they do have a relationship in their record to the Pleiades, also to the Sirius star systems. You see, to the Mayans, to the Olmecs, the question of aliens is really not a question. Their history is rich with interaction. Their history is rich with contact. And the Mayans, in their astronomy, for example, the way they would align and configure their temples, these were done with a off-planet knowledge of astrophysics that one really couldn't have if they just had if they were just within their own Earth-contained environment. They did have to understand astronomy, and so there are depictions in pictographs of aliens that are passing a skull, which we know to understand to be a crystal skull, to a Mayan shaman. That's in a pictograph actually in Tikal. And it's many of those pictographs, by the way, have been misinterpreted as to what was going on there. Maybe we can touch upon that at some point. But the alien connection is part of their historic record, and certainly the alignment, the configuration, and the Mayan calendar. And this is another part of the message it is very important to convey to the listening audience, to millions out there, is that the information for the Mayan calendar was contained within the crystal skulls. And that is what one of the main messages of the Mayan priests that kept protected these for centuries, for thousands of years actually, is that the information for the calendar was actually contained and could be drawn out of the Mayan skull. And they would have their
like a computer chip would work?
Very much like a computer chip would work. In fact, a computer is a very good analogous tool to what a crystal skull is. Today we know and we understand. Well, we could go back to when we were Boy Scouts in our youth, George. We could make a crystal radio. Today we have quartz crystal silicon chips that power everything from TVs and computers to household appliances that are responsible for a jet or any of our automobiles to be able to run. The information and the holding of that information, the storage of that information, the presentation of that information, that is what a crystal skull is able to do. And it's not at all different from what we do today with a quartz crystal silicon chip.
That is remarkable that technology would exist even then.
Well, it not only was able to exist then, but I think probably in a fashion that we have not yet achieved today. George, we have the most fantastic technology today where we're able to micronize a quartz crystal, take it down, make a computer chip out of it, and run everything that we understand to be in our new enlightened age. Well, for these makers to be able to put that technology technology into a large natural quartz crystal and then have it become part of a, shall we call it a metaphysical or a religious system that would protect it through the ages so that it would still be available today after tens of thousands of years. And you see, these were not metaphysical tools. These were not religious tools. That was laid out there onto them for their protection. These tools are high science. These are quantum tools. We can recover information about the past, the present, and the future. We can open a Stargate, a Stargate being a doorway. The physics is very complicated, but here we actually have an instrument that we can pull the visuals up. I would like to see some future work done where we really apply our science to these crystal skulls and start to take advantages as to what their full capabilities truly are.
Have you heard stories that the Atlanteans had a massive crystal that somehow sank along with the continent or island? And to this day, that's one of the reasons where we have these disappearances and these strange things happening in the Bermuda Triangle.
Yes, George, I've heard that. In fact, I've had many late night conversations about that with Francisco. Now, in the Mayan tradition, they understand Atlantis to have actually been out just off the area what we call the Caribbean, perhaps where the Bermuda Triangle is.
Edgar Casey would call it Bimini. And that
there you go. And the Mayan shaman, that is part of what they know to be actual fact, that yes, that did exist there. The large crystals could actually have been considered to be like master computers. Then you had the crystal skulls that were a little bit smaller, but they could tie into, shall we call it, home base. And then you could have these other crystals and smaller crystal skulls that would be like desktop computers. And they were all interconnected. We were able to communicate not only with ourselves here on Earth, but out into the galactic community. And the Atlantean legend, that's accepted as being fact in the Mayan tradition. And it is all tied directly to the crystals and the crystal skulls.
Richard, you don't have a website. I don't have a book here that you seem to be selling. So what's your effort here? What's the purpose for you?
George, I have not capitalized on my part of this journey. No, I don't have a website. I'm not promoting a book. I don't have a CD. I'm not making a movie. And I've kept silent for 30 years. There are those that are able to, that are capitalizing on it, and that's just fine. My part of the journey was to make sure that it was safely transferred from one world to the next. That was what was my challenge that I had to face. I was specifically destined, and I was specifically chosen and identified by Frank Nasarino and then by Francisco, the Mayan priest, to be the one to bring the crystal skull forward into our world and also speak to the masses about what it contained. Now, I will leave it to others to speculate. Everybody is welcome, and there are certainly those that are very uncomfortable, in fact, a little bit deranged, George, about my being out here tonight. Oh, my gosh, the words out there in the crystal skull world is, who is he, and what is he going to say, what is he going to do? In fact, there are probably some careers that can succeed or fail based upon what I say.
Richard, let's talk about healing when we come back. We'll talk about the Mayan calendar, and also, what do the skulls say about Earth changes? I'm George Norrie, back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Well, how do the crystal skulls heal? And what does it all have to do with the Mayan calendar? Up next.